Welcome to CPAC Now, America UnCanceled. We have a great show for you tonight with all of this news of the Durham report and its initial findings. This is just the first step. We have former Attorney General Matt Whitaker on to discuss it.
That's right. And guess what? Matt Whitaker has joined the CPAC Now family. He launched his show last week, Liberty and Justice. It's airing every Friday at 7 p.m. But like our show, you can watch it anytime you go to conservative.org. And I got to tell you, it is just smart analysis and news and exactly what you need in times like, what are you trying to say?
You mean like this is smart analysis?
You're so smart analysis.
Okay, good. I thought
you're
she was
Mr. Smart
Sometimes
analysis.
she gets her Matts confused. I get a little bit jealous, but
well,
it's okay.
I know,
it's okay.
I know. But we're so thrilled that he's doing the show with us now. I know we're going to be talking about the Durham report with Attorney General Matt Whitaker, but you know, there's this interesting polls that came out from CNN. I mean, not that we in any way think CNN is credible, but what it was fascinating is you're already having a lot of these Democrats who are abandoning Biden. They want another candidate. You have poll numbers basically saying that with these Democrat-aligned voters, they're hoping to see Biden replaced on the ticket. That's about 31%, and said it was because they didn't want him to be reelected. Then you had 35% said it was mostly because they doubted Biden's ability to win against a Republican candidate. You're talking about these Democrats jumping ship. Matt, what do you say? Put your political smart hat on here.
Well, I just want to first say it was the Democratic operatives that did all the election cheating. So they all know that they were running up the score really badly for Joe Biden, and they know that he couldn't campaign.
Yeah.
He couldn't even leave his basement. It's not gotten any better in the White House. By the way, I love how they have the White House, and then they have like this set of the White House where they do these kind
bizarre.
of strange
events. It's like
events.
The makeshift, like he was getting his booster shot, and it was in this makeshift, kind of Oval Office thing. I mean, who thought in the communications office that was a good idea?
Yeah, it's bizarre. So look, the fact is this: that Hillary Clinton has made this run at being the alternative.
Right.
Now, of course, with Hillary Clinton comes scandal, and so all this scandal has broken out. I kind of don't know what to root for now. Kamala Harris seems stronger because Hillary might seem weaker.
No.
Let me just finish.
Weak.
Because Clinton now maybe
Matthew,
seems weaker.
It's Michelle Obama that they're eyeing for. In these polls, they have Michelle Obama. They like even Bernie Sanders to, run again. So
But they're going to have to get through this idea of pushing Kamala out of the way. And there's only one person on the face of the earth who can push Kamala Harris out of the way.
Who's that?
And that is President Obama, who's running the whole show anyway.
Right.
So it's President Obama who's going to decide who that next nominee is. And I said on TV the other day, what's interesting is the Democratic nomination is controlled by a former president. And guess what else is controlled by a former president? The Republican nomination. Mm-hmm. Whatever Donald Trump decides is going to happen. If he decides to run, he's going to get that nomination. If he decides to not run, he's probably going to pick his successor. It's very interesting to see these two former presidents playing such a big role.
Well, interesting enough, we'll have to see if Oprah Winfrey decides to run for president of the United States as a Democrat nomination.
Let's ask Barack Obama. He's in the midst of building yet another multi-million-dollar house without his mask on when he goes over to check out the plans.
That's right.
He has really done well. He's quite a good entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's become very successful so quickly. It's kind of like popping popcorn in the microwave. It just happened like that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
He's like a popular pop culture
He's
figure.
Brilliant.
Okay, we're going to talk to Attorney General Matt Whitaker next.
Hello, everyone. I'll be attending CPAC again this year, Orlando, Florida. Matt and Mercy have done a fantastic job, but I said, if you don't mind, get a bigger ballroom this year. Last year, it was packed and there were thousands of people outside, and they said, we're going to get a real big one. So I will see you soon. Going to be a fantastic crowd. CPAC is terrific. They do a great job. Let's have fun.
Okay, we're here in Florida. What's happening February 24th through the 27th, 2022, Schlapp?
We're going to have a big nationwide CPAC once again in Orlando, Florida. Just like last year when they canceled us in the swamp, we decided we're going to make sure that no one cancels us, including Brandon. And there's TW Shannon. How are you, man?
I'm great. I'm TW. I am Matt and Mercedes' brother from another mother.
And you're from the wrong state, too, but that's okay.
It's all right. Everybody loves Florida.
Yeah, but you're going to be at CPAC, right?
Absolutely. The greater the freedom, the greater the wealth.
All right, so tell these people they got to go this next year.
You got to be at CPAC. February 24th is the date. You don't want to miss it. All conservatives from around the country will be there, and you need to be there, too.
And go to conservative.org to register.
And follow us on social media. You might be offended sometimes, but you'll be okay.
Welcome back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. It's our pleasure to bring in former Attorney General of the United States, Matt Whitaker, who is the host of the growing family of television shows
I'm so excited.
here at CPAC Now
Yep.
called Liberty and Justice. It features Matt Whitaker, and obviously we want to talk to him about this disgusting news about the Durham report.
Oh, I thought we were going to say about the show first.
Yeah, we're going to talk to him about both things.
Every Friday at 7 p.m. We are expanding our programming here at CPAC, and we are just adding more and more superstars. So, Matt, welcome to CPAC Now, and walk us through this Friday show that you're putting together.
Well, it's great to be with you both, and I'm very excited that you said yes when I said I'd like to do a show on CPAC. And I think Mercy was the one with the idea, and Matt just came along as always. But we had our first show this last Friday at 7 p.m. I had Rick Grinnell, and we talked a lot about the Ukraine-Russia situation, very timely. This Friday, I have Gordon Chang on, and I can preview that a little bit. I know we're going to talk about China and the Olympics and the geopolitical relationship between China and Russia. And so we're just going to keep rolling. I'm enjoying doing the show, and I'm so thankful for CPAC Now and the Schlaps, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all in Orlando next week.
Well, our goal is like we're going to take on like the Netflix and all these CNN pluses and everything else. Because you can watch it at any time. So, yes, it's on Friday at 7 p.m., but you literally can watch it at any time at conservative.org. And we're excited that you're doing this. And, I think it's an important, you bring the legal perspective to it, which I also think is so helpful for people to understand what's happening here in the United States and across the globe. And speaking about the legal perspective, this bombshell of a story of the Durham report, I think has all of us just really like up in arms about what we've learned coming out of this report so far.
You're so right, Mercy. And what I see is nothing short of another Watergate type situation. This is a digital Watergate because you had crimes committed and you've had really a cover up. And the cover up is not only by those that committed the crimes and had knowledge of the crimes. It's also been by the mainstream media. I mean, I saw and shared a graphic today that none of the major networks, and including MSNBC and CNN, have done 1 minute about Durham's statement that said, in short, that the White House was having its communications intercepted by a private organization and used against them in hopes of building a report that suggested there was a tie between the Russian government and the White House. It is nothing short of astounding, and shame on the legacy media who is losing money and losing viewers to shows like CPAC Now because of their duplicity and just their inability to cover things.
So let's get to some details here. You're a very unique person to talk about this. Did you have any indication that there was proof of this? I mean, does this surprise you as well as the rest of us?
So this is one of the most frustrating things for me. And, while I was Attorney General, I was read into the Mueller investigation. I was told, really, it's the first statement I learned about the Mueller investigation is there had been no demonstration, no proof of any tie between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. And so end of story. That was the whole purpose of this investigation. So, we fought really hard to try to end it as quickly as possible. Obviously, they were writing their 400-page report trying to obfuscate this fact and fundamental fact that there was no basis for this investigation. And that's what John Durham, I think, is turning up. He's turning up really the origin story. You think about how we all trace our families back to the old country or to Cuba or wherever you might find your family. In this case, the origin story is really in the minds of people like Mr. Sussman, Mark Elias, Hillary Clinton even, who decided that because she was under investigation from the FBI, they would create smoke to make it look like Donald Trump should be
Can I
investigated.
ask
You know
a
what?
quick follow-up to you, General Whitaker? So, Mercy and I aren't lawyers. Most of the people watching the show tonight aren't lawyers. So when Durham comes out and does this, I've had some people call it a speaking indictment or whatever. There aren't specific indictments in this document that he filed. Is that maybe the reason why the press is using that as a kind of a loincloth not to cover this, which is they're waiting on that next shoe to drop, which is, okay, indictments come rolling out, because they're going to have to come rolling out after you read this report.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting, and that's even though you're not a lawyer, Matt, that's a very insightful question. This court filing was actually a recusal motion because Sussman and several others are all represented by the same law firm, and it was a suggestion that they had a conflict of interest.
You don't think it's Perkins Coie, though?
It is not. No,
Okay.
Perkins Coie is not representing their ex partner. Okay. It is. It's one of the other big law firms here in town. It might be Latham & Watkins. It might be, again, they're unfortunately a dime a dozen in Washington, D.C. But, that being said, is this filing just had this interesting 2 paragraphs, which was talking about the evidence and what the evidence would show. And it was this idea and this notion that there was a interception of metadata from routing information from emails coming out of the executive office of the president, and that I think is extraordinary. I can't. If it's not a crime, I will be stunned. But I've been talking to a lot of people over the last several days on this topic, and one of the things that I know Durham has is a lot of folks who went to Congress in 17 and 18 and were interviewed by the committee or their investigators who lied about this exact issue. So, this is going to be, again, Durham's been slow and painfully slow, and I think a lot of people think that justice is not being done, but he is clearly building this case a brick at a time to complete the house.
I feel like he's taken his time to really, dig into the details, get the information in a way that, which I know everyone was very frustrated. When is the report coming out or not? Although we're seeing that the mainstream media doesn't even want to cover it, as you mentioned. My bigger question here, and I asked this question to Matt too, is what did Hillary Clinton know? I think that is a very valid question. Do you think, how does it work? Will she be interviewed in this process? We obviously know Jake Sullivan had a role in this. He put out a statement back in the day when he was a spokesperson for the Clinton campaign, making this pretty much accusation that there's this connection between the Russians and and the Trump servers, and really trying to build this conspiracy theory narrative that really seeped into the mainstream media. Do you think Hillary Clinton will be questioned? And I look, I've worked in presidential campaigns. You all have worked in presidential campaigns. You all know the main person usually knows what's happening, even down the pipeline. And I just think that she had to have known that they were spying on the Trump campaign.
I have several thoughts on that, Mercy, and it's a good point. First of all, usually the top of an organization or conspiracy is the one that's directing traffic. And the way you would dismantle an organization, a criminal enterprise, a conspiracy, is you start from the bottom. And you get the low-level people to cooperate against the next level up. And I think that's exactly what happened, because if you think about what this conspiracy, and that's really what it is, what this conspiracy to privately spy on the Trump campaign and the Trump White House, it's Perkins Coie law firm appears to be involved. Private internet companies, universities are involved that had this data and metadata. But ultimately, it's the Hillary Clinton campaign that paid for the whole thing, that wrote the checks, and that, to my mind, is the one that directed traffic. But again, this is all exactly where Durham is looking, and he's, obviously we don't have a lot of visibility as to what he knows or what he needs to develop as evidence.
So the other concern everybody has is Democrat presidents do anything they want and aren't held accountable, but Republican presidents do very little and are, impeached a couple of times. So can they get rid of Durham?
No, they can't get rid of Durham. The DOJ regulations, which replaced the independent counsel, what Ken Starr was appointed under, with now the special counsel regulations, really have a heightened standard. This is one of the challenges I faced when I took over the Mueller investigation, is you had to have a good cause to fire a special counsel. And there's no way that Merrick Garland can do that.
But let me just punch in here. I mean, we're seeing outrageous behavior, first with the Obama administration, now with the Biden administration. Let's go to a little hypothetical, which I know makes people nervous. If they do get rid of him, what's the recourse?
Well, that's when you get the courts involved, and I know that doesn't give conservatives a lot of solace, but the Trump did appoint over 300 conservative judges, and this is one of those things that's going to be a battle. We cannot expect our political class to govern themselves, and this is why people like Durham need to be involved. And I don't. Unfortunately, I'm skeptical like you that if he were fired, and again, this is a hypothetical because I don't think he's going to be, but if he were, what would be the price that the Biden administration would pay and the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland? I don't know the answer to that, because this complicit media wants it to go away. Right. This is a very inconvenient story for, their 4+ year narrative.
Yeah, as well as the Hunter Biden story and the Joe Biden's business dealings in China and Russia. But let me also ask you this. So we know that it looks like they're going to keep. They basically said that they're going to keep accelerating this investigation, getting more information as we go along. Where do you think this all ends? And in terms of, are the Democrats going to really be able to successfully contain the situation? So I want to ask that, but also I want to understand. It looks like FBI and CIA leadership were also involved in a way that they just accepted that information that the Clinton campaign was providing. Brennan, Comey. I mean, it seemed like they were all part of this collusion scheme. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is what the big question that Durham's going to have to answer is who was involved in perpetuating this, what I call fable. It is literally a story that was make-believe, and they continued to go on the media and talk about this, and at the same time they would go up to Capitol Hill and say that they had no evidence that there was a connection. It's a difficult time, and we're all involved in politics, and we understand that there are dirty tricks, and you use whatever you have to throw it against your opponent and see what sticks. But in this case, this was a completely fabricated story that was used only to have a smokescreen for Hillary Clinton's email server challenge and investigation. And the FBI and other law enforcement and intelligence agencies bit on it, and they started looking into it and found nothing. Again, the Mueller report is very clear. There was no evidence of a connection between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Right. And that's the end of the story.
Right.
The and your understanding of the Mueller investigation is he was never denied the ability to look at anything.
No. In fact, I would argue that Bob Mueller and his team really overstayed their appointment. That their obligation was to see if there was a connection. When they found there was no connection, they were done. Right. Instead, they did what every special counsel does, unfortunately, and we'll see if John Durham can maintain his own discipline in this regard. But they just go far afield looking for anything and everybody as they turn over all these rocks and then start, they want to have something to show for their investigation. So then they have to, charge people with crimes. And that's, the Mueller investigation was only about the Russian collusion question, and that was a big zero.
So, Matt Whitaker, if I want to find something out about you because we're competitors and I want my show to do better than your show on CPAC Now or whatever the motivation is.
Have yours on 3 times a week versus my once a week on Friday night.
Remember,
I could always change that.
Being the chairman has its privileges. But the problem is this, which is when it comes to these Democrats in the swamp, there is such this collusional nature of the whole thing. But let's just set the table. can I go hire a digital company through a law firm or whatever else to go spy on my, my opponent in an industry like this? Like, what's the law that gets infringed when I start spying on my competitors?
Well, it's a little murky. The law is clear that you cannot wiretap and intercept communications. In this case, we just don't know enough about exactly what was happening, how they were getting the data. But we will know soon, right? We will, and most likely there will be crimes implicated, and there will be a conspiracy to violate those crimes. But with what we know right now, we just don't know enough. Certainly the university that had the contract with the federal government that was getting this information out of the executive office of the president, sharing that had to have violated laws, contractual obligations, and the like. And the other question that I know you both have, as I do, which is, where was our intelligence? Where were our intelligence agencies and our law enforcement agencies if there's that big of a exposure of the president's information, every email to and from being intercepted? That's, in this case, it was a university then sharing it to this private internet company. But what if it's China? What if it's
Great point.
Well, if
this is, and nobody seems to be cared about that. Nobody in the mainstream media cares about
because
that.
It's
and
Trump.
I would have to say that Joe Biden has the same exposure, quite frankly, because nobody said that they've closed this loophole.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Matt, you bring up a good point too, which is, because it's Trump,
it's fine.
The left is going to justify that what Hillary Clinton did and what her campaign did was the right thing, because they had to do everything they could to stop Donald Trump. The problem with that premise is the fact that Donald Trump was dutifully elected by the people, and that no one has a right to spy on that campaign. And there were, to your point, there were laws that were broken.
I think the thing that is really interesting about this too is that, what the left will justify in terms of defeating Trump or pulling him down or making him illegitimate was, unlimited. So it started by fabricating Russian collusion.
Yeah.
It then turned into this opposition research well into his term. Could have been the whole time he's in his term. Then they justified burning down our cities and assassinating cops through Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And then they rationalized no voter ID, no voter verification, mailing people 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ballots in the mail, no system to prevent those ballots from all being voted on, ballot harvesting at the yin-yang. And they've justified just about all kinds of criminal activity it took just to get rid of Trump.
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpack there, all of which I hope to cover in Liberty and Justice. But I want to put one fine point, Matt, on what you just said, and that is on the the voting issue. Remember that this bill that was pending in the Congress and still pending in the Congress did all of those things, nationalized all the things you just described, and also eliminated the criminal penalties for illegal voting.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
Yeah,
and the head of the Black Lives Matter in Memphis was just convicted on voter fraud in that state. So like this.
Does she have $1 million house? That's all I know.
Probably, as I say, BLM HOA. But Matt, on the question of voting in particular, I do think it's something really for you to cover, because it's interesting. The link between all of this is Perkins Coie. They're there in the 2016 campaign.
Mark Elias,
that's right.
Perkins Coie,
Mark Elias. They're there in the 2016 campaign. It starts with Russian collusion, and it goes all during this period of time. And in the end, it's Mark Elias and Perkins Coie. Later, the firm he joined, because I think Perkins Coie realized probably he was in hot water, and maybe some others. But the whole time, that is, if you want to see the link between the outrageous things that they tried to make legal and justify, that is the link. And I would just say to Republicans, as we gain power coming in November, it just happened last year with the victories all over the country at the municipal level and in Virginia at the statewide level. Then we're going to have all these victories in November. We're going to have gavels. And then I think there's a good chance we take back the presidency. I mean, we have got to bring these people, make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen again. Do you think it's fair to say that we got to get a little tougher on our game?
Yeah, we do. And I mean, I mentioned this as I've traveled around the country speaking with folks. And I say it every time I'm, at one of the county Reagan dinners in my home state of Iowa. And that is that, as Republicans, we have to be more effective when we do have power. And in two regards. One is if you look at what Democrats are doing with the slimmest of majorities in the Senate and really in the House, they are jamming as much of their agenda through. And in 2017 and 2018, when we had both the House, Senate, and the presidency, we complained about President Trump's tweets, and we just didn't get much done.
Right.
And so I think that's the one thing. The second point, though, and this is so important, is that we need to be focused. In addition to what I just described and getting things done, we have to deliver results for the American people. This is what Donald Trump taught us. Donald Trump taught us that Hispanics, blacks, really every segment of our society needs to rise from our policies, and they need to be applied across the board, because we have better ideas and better policies, and we need to implement them as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's a great point. And President Trump was able to accomplish a lot through on the executive branch side. It was a legislative branch that didn't get to do as much as we expected. Matt Whitaker, host of Liberty and Justice and a friend of CPAC's, and also former Attorney General. We are so happy that you joined us, and we can't wait to tune into your show this Friday.
And to see you in Orlando.
Oh, that's right. He's going to be with us in Orlando, which will be fun.
It is my honor, and I always gives me great pleasure and pride to be a part of the CPAC family. I'm excited about Liberty and Justice on CPAC now, and I can't wait to see you guys in Orlando.
Sounds great, Matt.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
We're going to be right back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled, after this short break.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Schlapp with CPAC, and it's my privilege to tell you that we've got a very important project that we've just announced, the First Amendment Fund. It's a brand new fund that we've created through our criminal justice reform efforts to raise money to take care of you, Americans who are being canceled and desecrated out there around the country. We know it just happened in Virginia, where parents were called domestic terrorists by the Biden administration, where people who just want to express their political views are canceled left and right. Now we have this terrible specter of a vaccine mandate where you can lose your job or be prevented from going to a restaurant or go to school according to your vaccination status. These are all the things that are happening in this country that are making people realize that America is in a fight to defend the principles that have made her great. If you want to be involved in this important effort, please go to conservative.org, click the link for the First Amendment Fund. Please donate to this C3 to help these victims across the country, including those who are just involved in politics, to make sure they have the legal representation they need to be able to live their great American life.
Welcome back, everyone. And I just wanted to talk with you, Matt, real quick. You hit the #1 in the new releases in the category in Amazon called Media and Internet in Politics, which is fantastic.
For the desecrators.
I know, isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, it's been exciting. I've done a bunch of media. I got to talk to Glenn Beck. Thank you, Glenn Beck, for having me on your show. I got to talk to Ben Shapiro. Thanks for having me on your show. I've got to talk to so many great folks
and it's called The Desecrators. What's like the main message coming from the book?
Well, the funny thing is that I actually had Chinese Corona on the couch and you were helping me edit the final.
Yeah, and I was praying to God I wouldn't get it, and I didn't get it during that time. But yeah.
Well, I think you all know it's been a heck of a journey for all of us in the last 18 months, and for Mercy and I, it's been alarming. You worked for the campaign. It wasn't the most well-run of campaigns. We all know what the final result was. Is they had Mark Elias and Perkins Coie and all these great lawyers.
Meaning the left did.
Fighting voter ID,
Right.
and we had a bunch of well-meaning lawyers who were kind of thrown in as
and
volunteers.
not very well organized operation.
And not a very well-organized operation. It's really still a tragic thing. And so that's part of the story. We tell the story about how people stopped having any association with us financially, commercially, because we believe in voter fraud, which they call the big lies, we all know, or we somehow instigated a riot at the Capitol, which we had nothing to do with and weren't there for.
Well, and it was also more about the Black Lives Matter, where Matt called out the truth on Black Lives Matter, and then all of a sudden, all these corporations decided, well, we got to cancel Matt, and so that's the wokeness of this country. But what's sort of your lesson that you learned from all of this?
The lesson I learned is God puts us on earth for a plan, and for me, it wasn't going to be to hang out with a bunch of corporatists who are really destroying the country. They're not really running corporations as much as they're polluting our culture, and I don't think that's really what I'm supposed to be spending my time doing. So I spend almost all of my time here, and you do too. And we're working with a great team here at CPAC, and I met with several of our leaders this morning, and folks are saying we got to save the country, and that's why you are involved, and that's why you're watching the show, and that's what we're all set about doing. Yeah. And we got to stop wasting time on things that aren't important.
And we're more connected than ever, I think, right now. So it's just wonderful. And we're looking forward to seeing many of you at CPAC in Orlando, February 24th through the 27th. Go to conservative.org. We still have some tickets left. We'd love to see you. It's just going to be a spectacular event. And we want to thank our team for really working so hard day and night to get this ready. It really is a labor of love for all of those involved. And then stay up to date with us and follow us on social media at CPAC, at mschlapp, and at Mercedes Schlapp, and keep making an impact in your communities. Have a great night, and God bless.
God bless.